Everyone, this is another video with Hofri. This time it's not live. So I realized with my previous video where I was going live and kind of talking through the plays that might not be the most exciting thing to see. I know some people may actually want to watch full games with me talking about the lines of play as they're actually happening. But for me, I think I'm going to do a mix of those. And so here we have a replay going at pretty fast speed. And one of the changes that I've made to this list compared to the previous video is I've added more protection. And to replace that protection, or replace, the cards I replaced to add this protection are cards that I felt were subpar. So one of the creatures is Linvala. She's a stacks piece. She shuts down activated abilities of creatures. Most competitive commander lists I've seen actually cut Linvala, and I think that's because by the time you drop Linvala, they've probably already gotten value out of their mana dorks, and so she comes down relatively late unless you're also playing a deck that is playing mana dorks and or can accelerate her out very quickly to a point where it actually matters. So for that reason, I feel like Linvala is a bit too situational for me to include. In the past, I've thought about including Linvala just because it's not competitive commander, and with longer time, maybe Linvala isn't as bad. But I've found that the sort of competitive EDH trend of cutting Linvala still holds true in mostly casual play. If they are playing mana dorks, you're probably not going to stop them from getting value out of them by the time you drop Linvala. And also, a lot of times, activated abilities of creatures don't really matter as much compared to ETBs. And so, Magic has largely moved away from the slower, grindier game of playing creature, waiting a full turn cycle, playing another creature, and like building up this slow long-term strategy. And that's partly because of the efficacy of removal that has been introduced into the format, because there's so much prevalent and powerful and efficient removal. It's difficult to play a game anymore where we play a creature and then wait a full turn cycle, play another creature, and build these incremental board states, except in maybe like Battle Cruiser Commander or Low Powered Commander, where removal and interaction are not as prevalent, or perhaps I should say not as efficient. So the whole dies to removal has pushed the meta largely into creatures that ETB and already give you value. And so for that reason, creatures like Linvala aren't as effective as stacks pieces in terms of their impactfulness. So part of the reason why I wanted to cut Linvala is because, or rather replace Linvala with protection, is because we tend to not do as well when Hofri is removed. And I think we're just at that point right here. So he just played Void Rend to get rid of Hofri. We don't have enough mana to recast Hofri this turn. But when it gets to his turn, he's going to play the Damning Verdict, and he's going to wipe my board. And then he's going to proceed to knock me down to like 2 life. And I will eventually win this game, but it's one of those things where, you know how I'm taking a long time to like look for something from the Imperial Recruit right now. End up getting the Stoneforge Mystic, and of course Stoneforge Mystic has one main purpose in this deck, and that is to get Skull Clamp, which is one of the best draw equipment pieces ever created. Just because at this time we don't have a draw engine online, and one of the most important things in Commander is to understand it's a resource war, and that you need to get your draw engine running in order to really stay in the game. Because if they wipe your board or whatever and you don't have a draw engine, then you're pretty much screwed because you're top decking, unless you happen to top deck and get lucky. But the first time I played this Imperial Recruiter, you know, or like, I feel like instead of um, having to think so much about what to get, because by default, if I don't have a draw engine, I'm gonna get something that gets me a draw engine. But the second time, I want to be able to grab something like Mother of Runes or Giver of Runes, because as you'll see, that guy scooped because he was pretty much in top deck mode and out. And of course, this guy was saying, don't scoop because it's pretty much a 1v1 between me and Queenie here. And that would have given him time to get back in the game, which is something I agree with. I have a lot of respect for Queenie and his builds and his decks. But the thing is, you see here, this Damning Verdict is going to blow up my board, and because I don't have Hofri, I don't have the Luminous Broodmoth, and I didn't have a protection piece for his Void Rend to save Hofri, I pretty much have to start from scratch with basically a Grasp of Fate in my hand. And that's a problem. As you'll see, I barely eke out this game. And so I think cutting Linvala, and honestly, I might cut Professional Facebreaker too. I'm looking for another cut to fit in the Giver Runes, because I don't think Deflecting SWAT, Fanatical Devotion, and Mother of Runes are going to be enough. I would like one more protection piece that I can search using the Giver, or using Imperial Recruiter or Recruiter of the Guard. So that way I can have a game plan of get a sack outlet online. Obviously that's one of the first steps, just because you need that as an aristocrats deck. And of course you're naturally going to be playing value creatures, and so I don't need to necessarily put that as part of the game plan. That's just something you're going to curve out and do. But then the second part is most likely going to be either get a draw engine if you don't have one. And there's actually a lot of ETB creatures that you can get draw engine like card advantage value from, so you don't necessarily need to go and find the Stoneforge Mystic and get the Skull Clamp every single time. But instead you'd be able to play the Imperial Recruiter or Recruiter of the Guard or some kind of tutor, and then think about getting a protection piece for Hofri. And I think that that sort of addition to the deck is something that was missing in the previous iteration. And so you'll see in in this game, so he's already knocked me down to 22, and I think he could have killed me if he did not play the Sun Titan here, which he does. And the way I got back in the game was so he could have just used Rogue's Passage, make this thing unblockable, hit me twice, and then kill me. Instead, he played Sun Titan, hosed my graveyard. But because I was able to block the Westgate Regent with this Luminous Broodmoth on Skull Clamp, that's actually what gets me back into the game. And eventually kill him, even though I go down to 2 life and can't use my Ancient Tomb. But the point still stands that I think we need that as part of the game plan. Is at some point, once you have your sack outlet, your draw engine, then what you need is some sort of protection for Hofri, and then you can start sealing away the board, because you can start sacking those tutors like Imperial Recruiter, Recruiter of the Guard, to start getting stacks pieces and really lock out the game. And I think that's what the game plan of this deck really needs to be. Of course, you can also get combo pieces as well if you want to just combo out to win the game. But the purpose of this list is not to necessarily find your combo pieces as fast as possible, and instead play this sort of grindy game that can combo out, because over time you are going to find those combo pieces, one of them being Alter Dementia, the other one being the Goblin Bombardment, and then you're going to find like Karmic Guide and Revelark, or Sun Titan and the Gift of Immortality. And then you just be like, oh, I have Infinite here, and you don't necessarily need your commander for it either, which is another thing, because some people don't like the fact that if you've got like a 3-card Infinite combo, but one of the cards in your command zone, it's sort of like a 2-card Infinite combo. But the 2 Infinite combos in this deck, all of them do not involve the commander. and are actual like 3 cards you have to find in the deck simply by playing it. And so I think that's completely fair and valid. So here he's going to Rogue's Passage, the Westgate region, smack me for 12. I'm trying to think what else he does. Oh no, he gives this thing flying, so he brings me to 2 on this turn. So I'll go ahead and speed it up a little bit. Plays the Zephyr Boots, which gives a creature flying. Then he has just enough to activate Rogue's Passage. He's going to hit me for 18. I got a 2. Oh yeah, and I did sack the Remorseful Cleric to exile his grave in response to the Sun Titan trying to bring back Curiosity, because I wanted to prevent any sort of draw engine. I'm able to Grasp of Fate. His thing is Westgate Regent by discarding Recruiter of the Guard, play Revelark. I get the stuff back. Recruiter of the Guard gets me Solitude. Yeah, I sack it. Tutor again, I get the Loyal Warhound. I exile his things. And then here's actually where I back up, because I realize I have exactly 17. If I sack Solitude, turn it into a token, which would get +1/+1 in haste, and then I've got exactly 17 on him, and that's how I was able to win the game. But yeah, I think that you know, one of these, possibly Professional Facebreaker, possibly the Ranger Captain of Eos. I honestly have not really used this guy that much in this deck. He can be used to stop Spellslinger type combo decks, and that's the main reason for me to try to keep him. But he's not tutorable by the main tutors in our list, so it's not as reliable to get him. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want to cut something else for a Giver of Runes. That way we have several protection pieces for our creatures that aren't Hofri, which by extension of that definition means they would protect Hofri, like Broodmoth, Mother of Runes, and of course our Deflecting Swat. If I can find a slot for Giver of Runes, that'd be great, but that is going to be my focus in the test moving forward, is determining whether some of the cards that haven't really seen much play are worth keeping in here, like the Professional Facebreaker. Really good in more combat focused decks, which we aren't really as big of a combat focused deck as you know, we do swing later in the game if we've got a massive board and we need to close the game out and kill people, but we don't get as much value from it early. So a lot of times we're probably not getting a treasure from hitting somebody. And I included him just because he is sort of like pseudo card advantage, but I haven't tested him enough, or at least seen him in enough games to really know whether he should just be a Giver of Runes instead of what he is. So he's currently my most likely on the chopping block, just because I haven't also again played that many games where I even want to like tutor him off of a Imperial Recruiter. So I think he's probably a better fit for a more combat focused deck than this one, but I'll figure it out in the next few next few days as I continue to test. And you probably won't see videos on that. I'll probably do another video near the end of this week that kind of summarize my thoughts and conclusion, or not the end of this week, technically it is in the week, probably in the next week, that kind of summarizes my thoughts and conclusions of whether he makes the cut or not. So yeah, that's pretty much sums it up for this video. See you in the next video, and hopefully the list will be almost done by then. So